Anthony Daniels is on the line right now, and you are in New York City right now. What brings you to New York?
I am in New York City gazing out over the Hudson River because I am appearing at the New York Comic Con. Everyone has a Comic Con these days, and very much looking forward to meeting more Star Wars fans, people who've, kind of been around for the last 30-something years, and then new fans as well, because now really the fan base, the audience, is 3 generations, which is quite amazing when you think about it.
And we'll continue on even further yet, because I guess they are making another 3 more movies. Are you going to be involved in that as well?
So they tell me, yes. So I think for the rest of my life, certainly, this is going to go on and way, way after. But I don't actually appear at many conventions, and just occasionally it is fun to actually, meet the people who've made the whole thing work. George and the team made the movies, but without the audience and all that loyalty, then, we wouldn't have had more than Star Wars: A New Hope. So it's thanks to the customers, really.
Now, you actually played yourself. What was that, episode 2 or 1? You had a little cameo role in that?
Oh, yes. I said to George, I'd like my face to be somewhere in these movies. And he said, sure. So I dressed up in one of the few remaining costumes that was an army officer, and just sort of stood at the bar with some very attractive girls. And actually, if you look at it, the costume shows me as an officer, but that was because the arms of the costume were too short, and the wardrobe department said, oh, we'll fix that. And they put a lot of gold braid on. It's the easiest upgrade I've ever had. But being an extra, I don't know, it's hard work. It gets a bit boring standing around. But there's so many stories to tell about these films. And of course, I was last in your area with Star Wars in Concert, which for those people who I know just love the show as much as I do, it's the best job I ever had, to stand on a huge stage and share the story very simply. We cut out a lot of the details, as it were, but to share that with a live audience and John Williams' music and wonderfully edited film sequences, what a treat that was, and to have a live audience in front of me responding live. On a film set, people, have seen it all before, and there's no audience reaction. But with Star Wars in Concert, it was magnificent, and we are bringing it back next year, so I'm very excited about that.
Are you still able to actually fit into the C-3PO costume?
Well, I'm in the gym most mornings, I'm kind of, but then, of course, you don't want to build up muscles, and I'm certainly no He-Man. I don't have to get in the costume today, shall we say. Which is lucky, because I enjoy the good life. I enjoy a nice meal, a glass of wine, all of which contain calories, ice cream, all the good stuff.
Well, it's CGI now. I'm sure they could easily take care of that for the future. So.
Yes. Yeah, Photoshop is a wonderful thing, yeah.
When you were filming and you had the suit on, when you took it off, how good did it feel to actually be able to walk upstairs at the end of a long day?
Well, more importantly, it was to sit down to take the weight off my feet. It gets pretty old standing up all day. So I used to sort of, sit on the floor for a while if I'd worn it for a long time. But in the last movies, it wasn't so bad. And I think, from memory, the last time I wore it was when we were filming for the new Disney Star Tours, the upgrade from 23 years ago. They suddenly decided to modernize the ride, shall we say. So it's all digital now, and 54 variations of the story, which is pretty magnificent. But of course, the main thing is that 3PO is still there in the pre-show, mending your spaceship that you're going to get on. But he also is the pilot all through your adventure. So we did some live filming for that, live action.
You were in all 6 movies. That would be the longest running Star Wars actor.
Well, I'm the only person to be in all 6. This is kind of one of those little pieces of trivia. Like, I had the first line of episode 4 and the last line of episode 3. So at the moment, I am the bookends and the only person to actually work on them all, because other people, either became younger or became, digital. And so I'm the only person to be there the whole time, which many of the fans will know is particularly strange, because I refused to meet George Lucas back in 1975 because I wasn't interested in being in a sci-fi movie. And it was my agent who made me go. And on the wall of his office was a painting by Ralph McQuarrie, a concept painting, and I completely was captured by it, absolutely, by that image.
We actually got to see some of those images. The Star Wars, the traveling exhibit was in Edmonton, not too far from Saskatoon. I know a lot of people went to that. They had concept art.
That's right. I was hoping to be there, but I didn't make it. And I know Ralph's picture was in there, and he was inspirational.
Wow.
And then, of course, many people may not know that although I recorded all the way through, with a very bad radio mic, so it was very muffled, but I was, doing 3PO's voice as I saw it at the time. And it was months later that I found out that George actually was trying to replace it with people like Richard Dreyfuss and other, really well-known actors, because he didn't like C-3PO, human cyborg relations with my counterpart R2-D2. It wasn't at all the voice he had in mind for the character, so he did try. And then, fortunately, 3PO is 3PO. He's not me. He's not the costume. He is an entire, I won't say person, but you know what I mean, a character. And it didn't work with anybody else's voice on, so George eventually, back in 1976, a long time ago, got me over to Hollywood to put my voice on. And that's when I learned that he'd been trying to replace it. And the weird thing is, the Disney ride I was just talking about, when they just wanted to match up some of the existing material in the pre-show before you actually get onto your Starspeeder 1000, they said, can you just do these lines and we'll fit them in? And I could exactly match the voice from 22, 23 years ago with what I am today. Don't quite know how I do it, but I do a lot of voiceovers. For instance, Clone Wars, the cartoon series, was very popular. That's stopped now. It's being replaced by another storyline. But also the Yoda Chronicles, which are the Lego Star Wars TV specials, which are very, very funny. Because now we all love Star Wars so much, we can actually sort of take the mickey out of them a bit and be a bit irreverent. Not rude, but, you can have fun with it. And that's a delightful thing, because, if you take things too seriously, you stand to, I don't know, be thought pompous or too, I don't know. But it's very nice that we're all fond enough that we can poke fun at 3PO or Yoda or, I don't know, Darth Vader doing silly things. Because we're all Lego bricks, it's rather wonderful. There was an episode I was doing a few months ago where in the script I had to pull Chewbacca through a hole, and he was too fat to get through, and we made jokes about all that and so on. And then they rang me up and said, we'd forgotten, everybody's the same size in Legos. If you can get through, he can get through. So, we were laughing at ourselves there. But it is magical that there is something for every age group in the whole Star Wars galaxy, if you will. And, of course, talking about galaxies, I'm about to go back to England to appear on stage in some... they're on tour at the moment. I can only do 3 dates. But the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which you may know, I don't know how popular it is over here, but it was a major sort of 1970s radio, TV, and eventually a film. So it's a sort of cult, strange story about Arthur Dent and Ford Prefect and characters like Zayford Beeblebrox and Artie Bartfast. And there's a wonderful robot called Marvin, a depressed android. And I am the book, so I sit on stage with all these cast members and lots of effects and huge fun.
Wow.
So I guess my life is in outer space these days. I don't know.
It's incredible how much it's really become your life, and it's a great one too. It's the opportunities keep coming.
I expect it, and I don't think I accepted it for quite a while. And then I would say principally because of Star Wars in Concert, where I realized that the story I'd been involved in and never really understood was really rather magnificent, as was all sorts of aspects of it in the production and so on. But what particularly struck me was the importance of it to individuals and families in their lifetime, that a lot of people can name events in their family around, the various films. Who was it who took them to the original Star Wars? Are they no longer around? Does it stir up memories and so on? Sometimes it was a refuge for young people when they were having, family difficulties, maybe, a divorce or something, and they would. Even last week, somebody was telling me how he would keep going back to the movie theaters because his parents were splitting up at the time, and it was his one area of comfort. And I will say, it's very moving to hear this sort of thing. And there I am, a part of it. They're not necessarily films I would have gone to see had I not been in them. But I cannot but admire the audiences that have kept it going. And yes, I am there. I now delight in spending most of my life doing Star Wars projects, whether they are hosting various events and working on exhibitions or so on, or recording these cartoon series.
Now, since Star Wars, other series, other movies like it have tried. Do you think there'll ever be another Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings did the 3 movies, Harry Potter movies? Now, do you think?
It's odd. Of course, I was in the original Lord of the Rings film,
Yes.
which was a semi-animation by Ralph Bakshi in about 1978, I think. Part 1 of Lord of the Rings. I was Legolas, Prince of the Elves, and it was a voice recording, and it was curious. They didn't tell me that he was. I didn't see a picture of him, and it wasn't until the finished film that I realized he was a blonde-haired person. So I possibly would have played it slightly differently had I known it. The real hurt was, of course, that they, making the major film many years later, they gave the role of Legolas to Orlando Bloom. It still hurts to this day.
You would have been great. You could have had the hair out, and it would have been beautiful.
I think Orlando Bloom was a better choice, to be honest. But anyway. But the odd thing is that, yes, the Lord of the Rings films, wonderfully created, very, very popular, and the Harry Potter films filled with astounding imagination and sentiment and excitement and so on. But neither of those have the same curious appeal as Star Wars. Now, it may be because back in 1977 when it came out, it just hit the right moment. I think the word zeitgeist comes into play there. It just hit a little moment, Vietnam War, all that kind of thing. Life was a little strange back then. And there were no films like it. I remember that The French Connection, for instance, was very popular. A wonderful film. Very gritty, not at all. Not fun, very exciting, but and George just hit the moment, and enough people saw it then to now remember all those years later to take their friends, to take their kids, and now the kids are taking their kids. And there is something that has been held up, of course, by the growth of the electronic media, so that you started with video and moved on to laser discs. They didn't last very long, and now we're all going to have chips implanted in our brains that we can just see it at the back of our eye, I would imagine. So all this magic stuff's happened, but it has made it easier for people to review and share and really delve into these films. So a lot of things have come together in a kind of magical, well, not a moment, a magical recipe that is unusual. So I like the Harry Potter movies very much. Lord of the Rings gets a bit heavy for me, frankly, but I'm sure Tolkien people will hate me for saying that. But lots of good things. But there is something absolutely unique about Star Wars. And when you think that George had to take his script around to every studio, sort of begging them for help, and eventually 20th Century Fox gave him a little money, it's down to his perseverance, his self-belief. It's a wonderful story of making good. And as you know, having started with very little, he ends up, selling the whole thing to Disney. So doing quite well, thank you.
Very, very, very well indeed. Now, these new movies that are coming out, are you allowed to reveal any secrets? Do you know anything?
I don't know anything about them.
Oh. Do you know if you're going to be involved in them at least?
Well, since I don't know anything about them, I couldn't possibly say.
Well, hey. Let's hope. Here's to hoping that you're involved in there somewhere.
I know they are writing scripts as we speak, and it's quite a responsibility. Can you imagine? Coming up with something that will wow the audience who own as much of. Really, intellectually, they almost own it, like George Lucas used to. They certainly own lots of stuff, like lightsabers and Ewoks and spaceships and things. So there is a big responsibility, I would imagine, for Disney to get this one right.
Yes. Yeah, and J.J. Abrams, the same guy who did the Star Trek movies, is going to do this one, too. So
that's right.
Some people there...
the courage to do that...
That is a lot.
I'm not sure I'd be willing to risk my reputation in that way because, he could become a destroyer. But I very much doubt that will happen.
Now, you being somebody who always knows about the odds, what is the odds we will see a Mickey Mouse in this new Star Wars movie?
3,257,701 to 1 against. Unless, of course, they do have a habit, now I come to think of it, of in sort of big battle scenes or whatever, the effects crew have been known to put in the odd trainer shoe, the odd Nike thing floating through the battle scene. But you'd have to be very, very clever to notice it.
Wow.
So sometimes digital crews and so on do amuse themselves, or the director amuses himself, by shoving in a little kind of Easter egg there, which only the people in the know about. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was something had an echo of Mickey Mouse there, but I don't know.
The old Disney connection, yeah.
It'd be fun. But, Disney is such a well-respected company, and I have a feeling that they totally respect the whole Lucasfilm thing. So I think we'll be fine.
Safe. Well, Anthony Daniels, me being a huge Star Wars fan, this has been an incredible honor to speak to you. I'm beside myself right now, and this is...
Well, I've always had a good time. Every time I've come to Canada, whether it's Toronto or we did some amazing concerts on the tour, and each place. Montreal, I remember I couldn't stop the audience applauding, and I eventually just stood there and grinned like an idiot. Obviously all my own work and nothing to do with the 86-piece orchestra and the 100-piece choir and the 60 stage crew and the director and the lighting director and the video producer and the sound guy. I just stood there accepting the praise for myself. But, it's a total team effort. And Canada has always had a lovely, calm, gentle... I've always had a good time there. People have been very, very, very nice. So one day I will come back, I hope, and maybe we'll meet.
Well, I really hope so. But maybe you could do me a quick favor. If we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, if you could have somebody answer your phone for you, like on your voicemail, who would it be? And I had said it would be great to have C-3PO answer my calls for me.
Years ago, they asked me to do it at the studio, and I rang in one day, and the phone rang, and then my voice said, "Hello, I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations, and you have reached the Star Wars Corporation. However, Artu and I are the only ones here, but if you leave your name and number and the time of your message, we will ask a human to return your call. Thank you." I was so irritated, I can't tell you. And I've never done it since, because otherwise I'd get myself again.
Okay, well, I don't want to...
very cross. I'm perfectly happy with my own... Actually, I'm not. I don't even like my own voice answering my telephone. because I hear it when I, go from a remote telephone to pick up messages. I also, of course, have recorded the TomTom satellite, sat-nav thing for the car, and that is completely strange because it even works in France. And I'll be driving along, and then C-3PO will say, "At the next roundabout, go left, take the 5th exit," and I'm utterly bewildered how that all works, and it's me telling me where to go, because I don't know. It's very confusing.
Well, being in radio, you hear your own voice all the time, and I still don't like it, and I can imagine how you feel, so.
But at least he's usually right about where to go, so I guess I should be grateful. So there we are. Who'd have thought that I would end up as a sat-nav system, or a toothbrush holder, or a bar of soap, or a pair of pajamas, or any of the stuff that George's merchandise team came up with. Who'd have thought?
Now, having said that, are you kind of glad that maybe your image is not involved? Because you can kind of maybe get away from it if you want, compared to some other people whose faces are everywhere?
That's an interesting thought. Certainly there was a point in my life where I kind of did want to get away from the whole Star Wars thing, and you can't do it. There will always be, at any given point, a moment where you hear the soundtrack, the famous music, or you see a picture of Darth Vader, or C-3PO is mentioned in a book. That wonderful film Argo.
Yes.
I was amazed at the end of it. There was this, 5-second shot of C-3PO, a doll there, because he is spoken about in the movie, I think. And sometimes you do want to get away from things.
Mm-hmm.
Less so now. I just accept that it is part of the world's culture. And, just the same as when somebody came up with the Doric column in ancient Greece, no doubt people said, that modern stuff, 2,000 years ago. Star Wars now is part of our culture, and wonderfully so, and has inspired so many people, whether they're actors or writers or artists or scientists particularly, or musicians. It has so many areas that it has inspired people. So it is very much part of our culture now, and references in literature and art. And well, I'm very proud it all began for me, with a piece of art. So it's kind of circular, really. So there we are. We'll all look forward to seeing what happens in Episode 7.
Yes. Of course.
And thank you for talking to me, and I will say goodbye, and may the Force be with you.